Hi, dear friend.
Hi, Amanda.
I feel so excited to be here. You're one of the dearest friends in my life. I feel like we've been in like partnership in life, career for the last 17 years.
Wow.
And you're someone I deeply admire. Your leadership, how you manage people, and how you build incredible teams that not only win, but also thrive.
I feel the same way about you. You have been a mentor to me since day one. It goes to show that people who are younger than you can be your mentors and guides, which actually I think we're going to be touching on that topic a little bit
Yeah,
today. Anyway, I didn't even think about that, but you're just my totally dear friend. So this is fun.
great. And for those who don't know you, I'll just a little bit of context of your background, at least, knowing we'll expand further. But so you and I met back in 2008 at Yelp. You grew into the VP of Customer Success and built out that entire organization in an incredible way. From there, you went over to Eventbrite as your VP of Global Customer Success, and then ran a successful executive coaching and leadership development company for several years. And then magically, you've joined forces with another one of my favorite people, Jen Dolsky, now with Rising Team as their chief customer officer. So, what a ride you've had.
It's been a ride. I felt very fortunate and lucky.
So, this show is called On Influence and Impact. Influence is who you're being in leadership, it's the ways in which you're showing up, your energy, how you interact. And then the impact is the doing, the actions, the decisions, the choices you're making every day. If you're to look back on this evolution from your time at Yelp and this crazy growth to Eventbrite to your time building your own business, what has your leadership been like?
I think in order to describe my leadership, I have to go back even further than Yelp because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my leadership is based on the people we worked for and people we admired and who modeled good leadership for us. When I look back and think about my days as a summer camp counselor and having camp directors model great leadership for me, or my days in the nonprofits. I worked for a woman named Diane Flannery, who was just one of the most exceptional leaders I ever worked for. The way that she cared about people and cared about results and balanced both of those was very impactful for me. There was somebody named Chuck Green, who I haven't thought about in a long time, but I worked for him at the Volunteer Center of San Francisco. And then we get to Jed Nachman at Yelp, who one of his favorite sayings was, leader sets the tone. He
Yeah.
reminded us of that all the time. And so, how you show up, how you interact with people, what you care about, they care about, and all of that has just made an impact on me. And so, one of the things that I realized very early in my leadership career is that I really care deeply about people. I care about their goals, I care about their interests, I care about their fears, I care about their desires. I start from a place of I care deeply about you if you are on my team.
And has that always been symbiotic with results?
No, they don't. I've a funny story of Diane Flannery, who I mentioned I worked for years when I was in nonprofits. She was such a caring manager, and I said something to her one day that alluded to like she would have a hard time firing me. And she was like,
Mm.
no, just to be crystal clear, if you weren't performing, I would not have a problem
Mm-hmm.
firing you. She had very clear
Mm-hmm.
boundaries and understood that results mattered. And so to me, I guess the analogy I think about is sometimes when you see these really superstar sports coaches who are
Mm-hmm.
so driven to succeed, right? Like these people
Yep.
are no joke competitive and they want to win and they want, whether that's the Super Bowl or the championship or whatever it might be. And yet those really magical coaches know their players inside and out. They know what makes them tick. They know their families. They care about them deeply. I believe they don't use a peanut butter approach to management. They certainly have their methodologies and techniques, but they might know that this person is really driven and motivated in this way, and this person has these goals. It's a very bespoke, individualized approach to people.
And I feel like within that, I'm hearing a lot of this concept of like caring plus results and how do we mesh that together. And that sounds like beautifully was modeled for you from an earlier start in your career. How did that evolve for you as you went through your growth stages of hyper growth at Yelp to Eventbrite and so
I
on?
think the first thing we're talking about is the mindset. Right now, I'm reading a really great book on sales. It talks about to be great at sales, you need mindset, tool set, and skill set. You need all three of those. I think I had the mindset down, and then I needed to really start to develop my skill set and tool set as a leader and manager. So examples of that would be, how do you do quarterly goal setting? Great that you want people to achieve results. What do results look like? What are those metrics? How do you communicate those? How do you get people to own their own goals? Truly, I now have a methodology for how I help people to set their quarterly goals that's well honed, but it wasn't at first.
Is there a distinction, can I ask you quickly, between skill sets and tool sets, or they blend
Yeah,
together?
they are different. Skill set might be the skill of being able to do an effective weekly one-on-one. The tool set might be, oh, I have this Google Doc I like to use for my one-on-ones. So, like an example, Jennifer Dulski, founder CEO of Rising Team, has something called a motivators chart. It's a tool she uses to
Yes.
understand what motivates people. Before she had the tool, she probably still had the skill of knowing
Yeah.
that I should ask people about what motivates them, but over time she
Hmm.
developed a tool. So now at this point in my career, I have lots of tools, and I think it's why I got so excited about joining Rising Team, because Rising
Hmm.
Team is all about providing leaders and teams with tools to be the best they can possibly be. It takes time to develop the mindset and the skill set and then the tool set.
Were there any big inflection points when you recognized, oh, there's a moment here where I really do need to evolve
Oh
who
my
I
God.
am or how I'm showing up?
No, a million. The image that
Yeah.
comes to mind is the stair step, the learning and the growing. So there are some theories of growth and change that go from you don't know what you don't know to what you don't know to you move your way up. In order to get up those stairs, sometimes it's been like pulling myself over. And the time we worked together at Yelp was constantly that. I went from being a sales manager to managing a team of 10 inside sales reps, and then asking if I could also take on the two customer success managers. And so I did,
Hmm.
moving away from sales to build out customer success and saying to the leadership there, I haven't done this before, right? And then
Mm.
my team of 10 went to a team of 20. A team of 20 is very different than a team of 10. Now you need two
Yes.
managers. You're coordinating communication. Everybody was in one office. But then the next step was remote offices. Then it was international. How do you manage international?
Hmm.
We went from a scrappy startup where everybody was collaborating to much more structured systems. By the time I left Yelp, I had a global team of almost 300. I remember talking to a mentor and saying, what are some best practices for large teams? And this was somebody who had led a team AT&T of 1,000 people. And he said, starting to rely on things like town halls, video messaging, or periodically having skip level focus groups. You just start to learn what these techniques are. So, yes, the
Hmm.
growing and learning and evolving was constant, even when I left the corporate world and I started my own coaching and consulting practice. It
Yeah.
was a constant state of learning and growing and evolving and figuring out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to bring into the world. Yeah, I know you relate to that.
Totally. And when I hear you share all of that, the word that keeps coming up to me is just like this level of awareness. We keep doing this moment of looking over the edge to what's next, but there's an awareness of what do I want and where do I want to go? There's an awareness of when you're hitting against certain growth edges. And then it really feels like there's a transparency or vulnerableness to say, here's where I am, here's where I want to go. This is a gap, but then how do I go? Not being afraid to go get it, nor being afraid to admit that there's a gap here.
Yes, and it's so interesting hearing you repeat this back to me. I grew up in a family that I now have the language for, had a very fixed mindset as opposed to growth mindset.
Mm.
You were either really good at something or you didn't really need to pursue it. So you're a great skier, a great tennis player, great at math, or great at writing. And if you're not or you don't like it, that's okay. Go find the things you're great at,
Mm.
which is not a bad way to parent. It took me a really long time to understand the joy of pushing through and learning and saying out
Yeah.
loud, I've never done this before. I don't know how to do this, but I'm interested in it and I want to learn and I want to get good at this. When I joined Yelp, you and Erica were the two sales
Mm-hmm.
managers. I always thought of sales leaders as quite competitive. We were all competing, and you were just the opposite. You pulled me into a room and said, do you want me to role play with you? And I was,
Mm,
you would do that for me? And you were like, yes, because the quicker we can all learn, the more we can all learn together,
yeah.
it helps everybody. And so you created the safety for me to be vulnerable and say, yes, I would love for you to role play with me
Mm.
because I'm home studying these scripts and trying to figure it out on my own. And then I watched you decide you wanted to learn photography, when you wanted to learn new sales skills, when you wanted to learn coaching. You have a desire to learn and interest in growth that's different than what was modeled.
Everyone hits moments in which they need to grow. They need to be vulnerable. They need to step outside of their comfort zone. No matter who we are, how senior or how successful you might be, it's the same path.
And one of the gifts of being a coach is that you get to go those places with your clients. I know you coach very successful founders, CEOs, leaders,
Yeah.
and you're the place where they can say, I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to figure this out. When I was doing coaching and consulting, that was a real gift to be that place for people.
And I'm curious what you learned in that stage, because it is an interesting moment where you get the inside scoop into the lives of leaders. How did your understanding of leadership evolve through coaching others and leading workshops on leadership with others?
Yeah, what came to mind for me when you said that was really about the power of going back to basics. At Rising Team, a lot of the offerings that we have, which are these kits, it's a software platform that teams and leaders can use to run interactive workshops with their teams. And a lot of the going back to basics is creating psychological safety with your team, creating a safe place, getting to know people as people, creating an inclusive culture. And then from there, you can build on understanding what people's natural talents are or what motivates them. And then
Mm.
only from there, then do you have the ability to set clear expectations and give feedback. When I was doing my leadership training and coaching and consulting, one of my core offerings was a training called Manager Basics or Manager Essentials. Years ago, I was visiting my in-laws and I really wanted to take a yoga class. The only class available at the time was a yoga basics. I've been doing yoga for 20 years. And I thought, it's okay, I'll just go get on the mat. I'll go do a yoga basics class. And it was so good to revisit the basics,
Mm.
right? To focus on your breath and your form and why you're here. And it was in that moment that the term manager basics came to me. And I thought, that's
Mm.
basics. How do you kick off a management relationship? How do you build trust? How do you inspire people? How do you set expectations and hold them accountable? How do you give coaching and feedback? To me, those are the basics. And I would say for any leader, go back to those. Go back to the basics.
Are there one or two that you feel are most critical, or if you can say, here's where you need to start? What's your take on it?
I would start with just asking questions. I just onboarded a new hire, and every time in my career for probably 20 years, there are 5 questions that I ask, which I will share in a moment. It doesn't stop with those questions. In week 1, I was asking her those 5 questions, but in week 2, I was asking her what's going well, what's felt hard, what are you focused on this
Mm-hmm.
week? How can I support you better? How can I be more helpful? They will tell you, they will give you
Yeah.
the answer. And sometimes it's not the things that you were thinking they wanted. So I would say the most basic is just ask questions. You don't have to shoot in the dark and make it up. You can say to somebody, what do you need from me? Or what are
Yes.
your goals?
Yes.
Um,
Listen, you're really good at that. Don't ask for the asking sake, because then it's
you don't have to
worthless.
solve, and you don't even have to solve. You just need to
Yeah.
listen. So can
Yeah.
we model this for 1 second?
Sure.
Amanda, what are some of your goals for 2025 that I should be aware of?
You know this about me. I am a crazy achiever. That is like my orientation. I'm like, give me a goal, give me results, and I'm going to blast through walls to get there. And that driver in me really has an incredible amount of strength, but it also holds me back a ton from feeling a greater sense of freedom or also really letting go. When I'm in that space, I'm clenching, I'm controlling, I'm perfecting. So it sounds contrary, but one of the big goals that I'm leaning into this year is actually to evolve my own spirituality. Because to me, that is one of the tools in building out my meditation practice, because it's a key piece that allows me to let go a lot more and to trust that I can make my best effort and I don't have to control and execute and perfect. I can just do my best and then let go.
That answer is exactly modeling why you ask the question. Because if I didn't ask the
Mm,
question, I would just know Amanda as I've known Amanda for 18 years. She's a driver, she's an achiever. This is what I assume her goals are. Here's how I can be a great friend to her. I can help her make more networking connections and invite her to this. I would have never
yeah,
uncovered that these are the ways that you want to grow and evolve this year. Some people who are newer in their careers won't have the answers. They'll say, I don't know.
of
I
course.
just want to do great at this job. And you can say, great, we'll sort it out together. But people who are further along in their career will often have very rich
Mm.
answers and things that you might not realize.
So I want to keep pulling on that thread because I think this concept of leading senior leaders is something you're really uniquely good at and is also often a hard transition. But I want to first get at what were the 5 questions?
There are 5 questions. The first question I ask is, can you tell me your story? And what this is, very often we will put somebody through 6, 7 interviews or promote them from within or whatever it might be. And we never take the time to be like, what's your story?
Mm,
Whatever they're comfortable sharing, but I tell them that I want to hear it all. So, where were you born? Who's in your family of origin? What were you like as a kid? I just want to know whatever they want to share. And that's usually where I get the really rich, like I was an opera major in
mhm,
college, or like the stuff you just don't get in interviews. The second one is talk to me about your goals. And
mm,
that can be this year, next year, 10 years from now when you retire. It doesn't matter to me. So tell me your story. What are your goals? Then I ask them, how do you like to be managed? Which is when a lot
mm,
of people hear this, they're like, that's mind blowing. It never occurred to me to ask somebody.
mhm,
And it doesn't mean that you're going to bend over backwards and completely change how you manage, but it really is helpful when somebody says, I really thrive with a lot of clear direction, or I love
mhm,
autonomy, or I really need touch points every day. Just get talking about it. Also is really helpful as if you're managing them the way they asked to be managed and it's not working, or you're giving them a lot of autonomy and you're not getting what you need in return. You can always reference back. Hey, when we first met, you mentioned this. I'm noticing this.
mm.
So that's helpful. The fourth one is what motivates you.
I ask this all the time of clients, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I've never asked them." It's like the power of the question.
So I,
Mm,
when I was an inside sales rep early in my career, and my outside sales rep said, I want to keep you motivated. What motivates you? I just looked
mm,
down and I was like, praise. A lot of it, loud public praise. Like that 24-year-old me was just like
yeah.
recognition, praise, bring it on. And now that
Yeah.
is not things like flexibility, impacting others, my
Mm,
own growth. Those are things that drive me. So, what motivates you can change over time. And if somebody's motivated financially, great.
own
Understand.
it.
Are they looking to buy a house? What are they hoping their earning potential is? Because if it's not going to happen in that role, then
Yeah.
it ties into the goals conversation.
And quickly, can I touch on that? I just want to highlight that piece around how this can really change and to not make assumptions too, because sometimes as leaders, we might be leading the same person for years, but the first month in might be way different than 3 months in, or you start a family, or anything can shift. So there's a frequency to asking, it feels like, not just when you start with these questions.
That's right. So, the fifth question is, what else should I know? What else should I know? We're going to be working really closely together. What else should I know? That is the invitation for them to say, you should know that my upstairs neighbor is a drummer, and sometimes you can hear the drums. Or you should know that I have to get my dog out for a walk at 3 o'clock every day, whatever it might be. Or I didn't mention it in my interview that I'm getting married next summer. This is the what else should I know? Those are all real answers, by the way.
And for the record, that question is my favorite coaching question ever. What else?
What else?
Because it's always that third, that fourth, that fifth thing that is like the nugget or the real root of it that they finally then have the space and the courage to say.
So, for leaders that have people asking for promotions or raises or new titles, the question's different than what else, but understanding the why is
Mm,
also often 2, 3, 4 layers deep. I've had people who say, hey, Jamie, I've been doing sales for a while. I really want to become a sales manager. What does it take to get promoted? How can I get there? I
mhm,
really deserve this. I earn this. And you're like, okay, great. Before we even talk about how, tell me more about that. Like, why are you itching for this promotion? They start to say something. By the time we're at the end of the conversation, it's really about, I want to get off the phones. I've been pounding the phones for
Mm.
so long. Cold calling's hard. It looks to me like managers don't do much. They just sit behind their desk. They make more money, and yet I feel like I work twice as hard as them. So now you're getting into the real stuff.
And what I feel like is coming through so clearly in our conversation is the power of questions. And not just the power of questions, but giving space for these conversations. Because when I think about all of our journeys and your journey in tech, we are moving a million miles an hour. And it's so easy to forget how important a one-on-one is, or a conversation to just pause and ask. I want to pull that out because I think it's this theme that I keep seeing in these conversations of almost slowing down to move faster. It's
Yeah.
one of those investments that unlocks motivation and drive for people when they feel seen.
Yeah. So in September, I transitioned back into a
Yes,
full leadership role as a chief customer officer. I'm moving fast and I'm talking
big move. You're
list.
like, buckle up, ready to go.
Buckle up and somebody gets half a thought out and then
Mm,
start talking over them. Even this conversation is a nice reminder to just,
mm. How has that transition been? I'm curious about that.
it's fascinating. I feel like every
Mm,
who's coaching leaders should go back and as an in-house operator be reminded how fast it is, how many moving parts there are, how many human dynamics there are, keeping people
mm,
informed and who needs to be included and setting priorities and realizing that there's more than can possibly get done in any given day. And so how do you make the right choices and take care of yourself in the process? It's
mhm,
a lot. So yeah, it's just a whole different world. It's fun. It's
mm.
really fun.
One piece that I feel like we haven't pulled out from you, which I think is one of your unique gifts, is managing leaders. I see this often with CEOs I work with. There's this transition where they move from managing ICs to managing managers. And then all of a sudden, there's a bigger transition where they're managing really senior folks when they don't necessarily have domain expertise. It evokes often a lot of fear, or what's my role? How do I add value? I know that's something you were uniquely good at, but I'm curious about your experience with that.
Managing managers, managing senior leaders, or even just being a peer to others. As a CEO, you might have a COO, a CTO. They all report to you, but there's also this sense of we're building together. And so, how do you support, coach, guide people who report to you as well as your peers? There's a couple things I think about. The first is maybe what you were saying before, which is we're all making it up as we go. Everything that we do is we're doing it for the first time. Truly, even if we've done it before. So I've built customer success at 3 companies. And yet, when I go to the next company, I am making it up as I go. I'm pattern matching, right? So I think that's the first thing to remember is that your CFO, CTO, COO, even if they're a 5-time CMO, they are making it up as they go. So just know that. Harkening back to a few of the things we said, asking questions, getting curious about who they are, what their goals are, really helps a lot. I think also bringing them onto your journey. I'll use Yelp as an example. When my customer success team got very large, I had directors and senior directors who worked for me. They were ambitious and hungry. Being able to explain to them, by the end of this year, we want to be here.
Investing in the vision and the purpose,
Investing in the vision and purpose and really saying it out loud. Here's how I'm thinking about it. Like all the chess moves, letting them see that they'll have their own chess moves. And there might be things that you're doing that they've never done before. One of the things that I'm watching Jennifer Dulski do is explore partnership. Hasn't really been a part of my career. So I'm totally fascinated to be on these calls and intrigued. And that's such a gift to be able to learn from those. I would imagine whether that's raising a round of funding or
Mm-hmm.
figuring out something with AI, exposing senior leaders to new things, opportunities, or board members, ask them what would be interesting to you and what would be most helpful. And then sometimes it's also resources. If they say there's a class I want to take, a workshop I'd like to attend, a networking group I'd like to be a part of, Having a CMO talk with other CMOs is really helpful to the company. So
Mm-hmm.
connect them in those ways can sometimes be a good way to support them as well.
It feels like there's two things. One, just really ask and listen, but then there's an expansion of how you can add value. So it's less around the direct role, but it's around connections, networks, exposure,
Yeah.
advocating.
Yes. And
Yeah.
in fact, a moment ago, I held up a book that's sitting on my desk,
Mm,
but we didn't talk about it. The book is called Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. I will hold it up again.
okay.
Help Them Grow, Watch Them Go. It is really such an insightful book, and there's so many nuggets, but there are a couple things that tie into what you were just saying. One is that these conversations around career motivation, growth, or learning, they don't happen once or twice a year. They're just a constant part of the conversation. Do you feel engaged? Do you feel challenged enough? Do you feel like you get to use your natural talents? I want to make those just part of you as a leader. When I talked about the mindset, I care
Mm-hmm.
about you. My job is to help you be the best you can be. That means that we're going to constantly be talking about what you need for growth, for learning.
Yeah.
So that's one part. The other part is it talks about how the help them grow is not about help them get their next promotion. It's not about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks down that there's three types of conversations you can have, and they call them hindsight, foresight, or insight. A hindsight conversation that's about growth might be exploring what are some jobs in the past you've had that you've just loved the most? Or when have you
Mm,
felt most fulfilled in your life? Or what were things you did as a kid that you really got excited about? That's the hindsight. Foresight are the conversations around, it might be around like economic trends or the landscape or
mm,
what's coming. A foresight conversation is everybody's talking about AI and how might that impact your role and what might that look like. We're at work right now, we're doing 30 days of Chat GPT. It's a self-guided,
yeah.
like how to leverage Chat GPT. So those are foresight conversations. And then the insight conversations are moments when you help people learn something new about themselves or remove blind spots or connect that they haven't seen before. So we're in unique positions when we're somebody's manager or leader to say, did you notice that you do this when you get excited about something, or you do this when
Mm.
you're nervous? Or I think you mentioned this, but you also mentioned this. Could it be that what you really want to do is this? That's the help them grow or watch them go.
So as we get close to wrapping, I always ask this question. What is your nugget, your tip, your best practice, or something that someone should go out there and do today to start improving their influence and impact?
Oh, I love that. Okay, there are two things that came to mind. The first one is say good morning to people. We used to all walk into offices and we would see
Yeah.
each other's smiling faces and we'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah, how you doing? And make it a habit. It doesn't have to be every day all the time, but if you realize that you don't have a meeting with one of your direct reports for the next couple of days,
Uh,
just Slack them, good morning.
great.
So say good morning. And leaders, if you have to put a reminder on your calendar to say good morning to people, it's totally okay. The other bookend of saying good morning is give appreciation, not praise, but give appreciation often. Thanks for your hard work this week. Thanks for putting in a long day. Again, I think in real life, it's a very normal thing to walk by somebody, be like, oh, hey, thanks for getting me that information. Thanks for doing that. And we lose that. Good
Yeah.
morning and thanks.
Anything else you'd like to say or share to feel complete in that conversation?
You're such a joy, and you are bringing so much good into this world. And
Oh.
keep being you, honestly, like your
Hmm.
heart-centered coaching and leadership brings out the best in others. So just keep doing what you're doing. I am so grateful
Thank
for you.
you. And right back out there, friend. I feel like you are a true embodiment of this beautiful connection and the power that can happen when you care so deeply about the human plus the results. And in this conversation, the themes that I really just see is the simplicity, yet the power and the importance of asking questions and deeply listening so that you can help people not just win, but really thrive. Because we have a responsibility as leaders to help folks do that. And you do that in a beautiful way. So thank you.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
sharing your wisdom.